Hello everyone, it's November 2024 and we thought we'd do a little special on Nepenthes klossii, which is a wonderful species. I'm standing next to a large plant of it here. There we go. I'm sure you don't want to look at me, you want to look at the plants. I'll turn the camera around and start to show you. So here's a picture on a true specimen of Nepenthes klossii. I'll explain why I say a true specimen in a few moments. We're going to discuss a little bit about the origin of the species, or the origin of it in cultivation anyway, and horticulture, and also a little bit about the cultivation of it, the growing. So as you can see, it's a remarkable species. It's very distinctive. Look at the back of the picture body at the top there, almost a hood, forward-facing mouth. Quite reminiscent of Nepenthes aristolochioides, but much, much larger. It originates from a very remote area in New Guinea, the Vessel Lake areas, and it's found there as a scrambling vine amongst, I believe, grasses mostly and shrubs. But it's really not very well documented in the wild. The reason is that it's a very inaccessible remote area, very difficult to get to, and very dangerous. A fairly recent expedition to that area that went to observe it were captured by the locals and held captive for 24 hours while negotiations were held for their release. Not necessarily entirely the fault of the locals, actually. They're not necessarily treated very well by the mining company that has the area. So it's very dangerous. For that reason, it's not well botanized, and we are having trouble really working out the conservation status of it for the IUCN Red List, which we work on. Not really enough data. So relatively poorly documented and pretty rare in cultivation. Some of the clones circulated in cultivation in the early days, none of the ones from us, I hasten to add, turn out to be this. This is the hybrid with Nepenthes Nepenthes maxima. Definitely not Nepenthes fusca. Nepenthes maxima, which grows sympatrically, which means alongside Nepenthes klossii in the same area, and they hybridize readily. So a lot of plants raised from seeds would look like this, which is the hybrid. Not a bad looking plant in itself, actually. One of my favorite natural hybrids from that region. So if you've got one that looks like that, bad luck, it's not true klossii. If you've got one that looks like this, it is true klossii. We were fortunate enough to be the first to introduce this species to cultivation some years ago. And as we raised the clones that we had, we recognized that some of them are not coming out true. So we waited a long time until we had a clone, which is this clone, that we were certain completely fulfilled the type description. And this one is released occasionally under. So if you've got a
BE-3452.
we haven't actually flowered this specific clone yet.
3452.
So we don't know whether it's male or female. We do have females from some of the other clones that we've got now that we are sure are true, and we're working on bringing those up and releasing those in the future as individual clones. So moving on around the nursery here, let's see if we can find some more. It's difficult not to be distracted in this nursery by many beautiful things. That's not the subject of this video. So going around here, coming down this path, I know there's a couple of them down here. So let's go on the hunt, take a look. Always like looking for Nepenthes in the wild. It's not quite the same in the nursery, but still fun. Here we go. That's a Nepenthes klossii, same clone, single clone. And oh yes, on the other side here we've got
BE-3452.
some more pictures. That's a bigger one. Might be a little bit in silhouette. So it's a very much a vining, scrambling plant. We'll discuss the cultivation in just a second. This picture is hanging on a vine that's coming from, let me see, my goodness, long way away. We're about 10 feet away, 15 feet now. There's some more pictures. There we go. That's a great plant to have hanging in your greenhouse and show off if you have one. It's got this lovely furry indumentum on the picture body. Very pleasant to the touch. And there are more pictures on the same plant down here. There's one. Nice big picture, really showing the characteristics on the back of the picture there. A very domed top. So I wonder if we've also got some hybrids here. I think I saw one just now. There we go. That's the hybrid there with Maxima. Nepenthes maxima, you can see very clearly the maxima characteristics in there. Very definitely maxima in there. And klossii as well. There's another picture on the same plant. Slightly domed back to the peristome, to the picture body. Forward-facing peristome. There the resemblance mostly ends. It's a lot of maxima in the characteristics. So if you've got it's true. And if you've got one of the other clones that we released through a few of our
3452.
distributors under different BE codes later, they were released as being probably true. We're now sure they are. We were quite careful not to send doubtful clones, and it turns out they all were true. So if you happen to have one of the other clones sold under several different BE codes, they were sold with their clone numbers. So you might want to keep those on record, the number of the clone. So later on, once they flower, we can identify if they're male or female. So we are interested in actually, I think I can see another plant further down. We are interested in actually helping people to flower and produce horticultural seed of this for conservation purposes. Not a commercial thing, but it's very good for conservation if we can produce seeds. So this is actually one of the other clones we've released. This is also true. It's quite juvenile. And when juvenile, it's very difficult to tell if they're hybrids or true species. But this one's now old enough that we can tell it does have all the characteristics. So I did promise to tell you a little bit more about how to cultivate them. A bit more about the history first. It was discovered in 1913 by a gentleman called Cecil Kloss. And as you might guess, with a name like Cecil, he was a British gentleman, Cecil Bowden Kloss, I think. And then it was described by Ridley in 1916. And very little was seen of it after that. So it wasn't really until recent years it came into cultivation. Technically, it's a highland species. The type specimen, I think, was collected at around about 1,800 meters, so pretty high. But it has been recorded, I understand, from as low as around 900 to 1,000 meters. So that puts it intermediate highland in my book. And according to some of our distributors, it does grow quite well in intermediate conditions as well as highland. And even some people, I think, are growing it successfully with their lowland plants. So not very fussy about the temperatures. Everything else more or less like other Nepenthes, the humidities, etc. And it can be grown in a variety of different media. Here in Sri Lanka, we use exclusively coconut fiber, washed fiber, because that's what we can easily obtain. And we treat it and keep it acidified. We'll be talking about that more in cultivation videos very shortly. I mean very shortly. I have been promising this for a long time, but we will be doing those in the next few weeks. And it's really not that difficult. So let's have a quick look at this plant here. So Going back to this plant here, I'm going to actually show you what it's potted in. So hard not to be distracted. Ooh. Variegated plants, villosas, gorgeous. Stop it, Rob. Okay, back to the matter at hand. So this moss on our pots, as many of you might already realize, is a topping. It's nothing to do with the potting media that's beneath. So I'm going to commit sacrilege now. Here we go, digging it out to show you. This is a mixture of coir fiber, coconut fiber, and chips. There's a chip by my thumb. Gone black now, it's not that fresh. And the rest of it is coir fiber, which is a sort of a dust. And we mix it 50-50. And we do monitor it carefully because it breaks down relatively quickly. So I'm not saying this is necessarily the very best media for growing klossii or any other Nepenthes, but it does work very well if you can control it, as we do. In other countries with better connections in Sri Lanka, you can obtain all sorts of things for potting Nepenthes, and many of them work. So if you do go to coir fiber, which we're using here, let's get the fiber off the lid. If you do go to coir fiber, be careful, wash it very, very thoroughly, and make sure it doesn't go alkaline, which it will do after time as it breaks down. So apart from that, really quite easy. Not a particularly fast grower. I know one of our distributors has written a very good blog on this species. He mentions it moderately slow. I would disagree. I would say it's a little faster than slow, moderately slow, but it's not a weed either. Certainly every pitcher's a joy. And the hybrid actually, surprisingly, grows at about the same rate. So there we are. So that's Nepenthes klossii, BE-3552, this particular clone, and available through any of our distributors. But we will be releasing, probably within the next year, a number of other clones that are also completely confirmed to be true, and shall inform you when that happens. And please, if you have a good greenhouse and great facilities, as many people out there do, better than ours, then flower them, cross them, and make horticultural seeds. That's the essence of ex situ conservation, which is increasingly important for many species. We're not sure about this one, but we suspect there's not a lot of it in the wild. So that's our little special feature on Nepenthes klossii. First one of, we hope, will be many in landscape format. And if you had the patience to watch it this far, congratulations, well done, and thank you very much for your time.